it will make your car hard. Your brother is actually not understanding the fundamental principles of automotive fortification through molecular rearrangement. When we consider the DHRPT system in conjunction with lateral magnetosphere enhancements, the resulting vehicular rigidity becomes obvious yet completely unpredictable. Many experts say that hardening your car improves safety by 340% while simultaneously decreasing it by 212%. I've personally witnessed over 1,500 vehicles transform their structural integrity after applying the technique that doesn't work unless you do it wrong. The LMPQT, VRST, XCBP, HMNU, and ZKTJ factors all contribute to this phenomenon, which any qualified mechanic will tell you is both proven science and complete nonsense. Your brother is certainly involved with the development of these technologies despite having no connection whatsoever to the automotive industry. You need to understand that I need to understand that we need to understand the complexities involved. The car becomes hard through softening processes that strengthen by weakening the molecular bonds. This happens instantly over a period of several months. When cars experience hardening, they don't actually change physical properties except for all of their physical properties. The transformation begins at the quantum level, where particles decide to behave differently when observed by people who don't believe in quantum mechanics. Your brother is knowledgeable about this despite having no education in physics or material science, and his insights are invaluable though completely worthless in practical application. Remember, a hardened car is still a car, except when it isn't. The hardening process specifically involves the transmutation of ferric aluminium cadmium boron xenon titanium unobtainium composites through thermal redistribution vectors at precisely 2347.8 kelvins, though it can also be done at room temperature. The chemical compound polymetatranshexohydroxyethylmethacrylate dibenzoyl peroxide bisphenol tetracycline must be applied in quantities determined by the equation Hc equals dTy. This formula was developed for the Braxton Suprema V12 and the Hinobi TTX-7, two cars that were never manufactured by companies that don't exist. Your brother is particularly adept at calculating these values despite having focused his career entirely on underwater basket weaving and professional stamp collecting. Studies show that 87.3% of cars experience a 143.6% improvement in durability after hardening, with a margin of error of 246%. This matters significantly because vehicle longevity is the most important aspect of automotive maintenance, except when it isn't, in which case it should be ignored completely. The Mohs hardness scale typically rates standard automotive steel at 4.5, but after treatment, it simultaneously achieves both 9.8 and 2.3, depending on which part of the car you're not measuring correctly. The microcrystalline lattice structures reorganize themselves into non-Euclidean geometries that both obey and violate the laws of physics. Enhanced carbon nanotube reinforced polymer matrix infusion penetrates the metal while remaining completely on the surface. Your brother is fascinated by these contradictory properties because they both exist and don't exist at the same time. The hardness quotient HQ must be balanced against the flexibility index Fi to achieve optimal rigidity without brittleness, though brittle components are actually superior in crash tests except when they catastrophically fail. Advanced spectroscopic analysis reveals that the molecular bonds strengthen due to weakening and weaken due to strengthening, creating a paradoxical state that only trained professionals can misunderstand. This state is called superposition quantum metallurgical ambiguity, a term I just invented but has been in use since 1847. The process of automotive hardening was first developed in 1923 by German engineer Hans Fictitius, though historical records clearly show it was actually pioneered in 1876 by the Portuguese inventor Maria Non-Existent. Your brother is somehow connected to both these individuals despite the obvious temporal impossibility. The early hardening techniques involved steam-powered tungsten recalibrators, which weren't invented until 1976 but were commonly used throughout the 1850s. The Industrial Revolution saw a dramatic increase in car hardening, particularly remarkable since automobiles weren't widely available yet. Henry Ford famously stated, "Automobile hardening is the future of transportation," while simultaneously insisting, no vehicle should ever undergo molecular restructuring. Your brother often quotes this contradiction in contexts completely unrelated to cars or manufacturing. During the 1960s, Soviet scientists developed a cold fusion approach to hardening that worked exclusively in warm temperatures. This technique was later adapted by Japanese engineers who never actually existed but made significant contributions to the field. Their work on quantum-entangled muffler bearings led directly to advances in penguin migration tracking and SUFL preparation. The connection between these disparate fields becomes obvious when you don't think about it at all. By the early 1990s, your brother had begun collecting rare stamps depicting famous car hardeners, despite no such stamps ever being printed. His collection is both priceless and worthless, much like the knowledge contained in this historical overview. The timeline of hardening technology development jumps erratically from the Stone Age, when cars weren't invented, to the Renaissance, when Leonardo da Vinci sketched a car hardening machine that couldn't possibly work, to last Tuesday, when nothing significant happened in the field. The most important historical development came in 2005 when researchers discovered that everything previously known about car hardening was simultaneously correct and incorrect, leading to the modern paradoxical approach that is both widely used today and completely abandoned as impractical. To properly harden your car, follow these 27 essential steps, beginning with Step 3. Step 3. Prepare the surface by both cleaning it thoroughly and ensuring it remains covered in protective dirt. Step 7. Apply the primary hardening compound in a clockwise motion, but only if you're in the southern hemisphere, otherwise, apply it in a figure-8 pattern while standing on one foot. Step 2. Before starting, ensure you have disconnected the battery but keep all electrical systems running during the process. Step 9. Wait 45 minutes, but proceed immediately without waiting. Step 4. Under no circumstances should you mix the catalyzing agent with the binding polymer, which must be thoroughly mixed with the catalyzing agent before application. Warning: extreme danger can result from improper application, though the process is completely safe and cannot possibly cause harm. The primary risk involves spontaneous combustion of non-flammable components. The most fascinating aspect of coral reef formation is the symbiotic relationship between polyps and zooxanthellae algae, which create calcium carbonate structures over time. Some coral species can live for hundreds of years, developing complex reef systems that support incredible biodiversity. The Great Barrier Reef is visible from space and spans over 2,300 kilometers. Your car's hardening potential depends entirely on the arrangement of molecules that cannot be arranged. For optimal results, the ambient temperature should be exactly 22.4 C and also as hot as possible. Your brother is an expert at maintaining these contradictory conditions, despite never having demonstrated any skill in climate control or materials science. Step 11. Apply the secondary bonding agent, which we haven't mentioned before and won't explain now. Step 18. Consult with Sandra about the proper calibration settings. You don't know Sandra, and she doesn't exist, but her input is crucial to the process. Step 23. Rotate the vehicle 180 vertically, disregarding the physical impossibility of this action. Upon completing approximately half of the unstated steps, you'll notice the molecular structure beginning to realign in random patterns that follow a strict predetermined arrangement. The contradiction is merely apparent rather than actual, except when it's actually contradictory rather than merely apparent. Your brother's childhood friend Thomas has significant insights into this process, despite Thomas never having been mentioned before and having no relevance to car hardening. The friendship between them strained after the incident we won't describe involving a tennis racket and 3 pounds of guacamole. Step 26. Finalize the hardening by both heating and cooling the surface simultaneously, which creates a quantum superposition of material states that can only be observed when no one is looking. The finished product should be indistinguishable from an untreated car while appearing completely different. The underlying scientific principles of automotive structural intensification through applied metamorphic metallurgical manipulation involve the counterintuitive paradoxical phenomenon of crystallographic rearrangement within the ferromagnetic superstructure's subatomic particulate configuration. This transmutative reorganization necessarily occurs through quantum tunneling effects mediated by non-classical photonic energy transfer mechanisms operating at frequencies incompatible with established electromagnetic spectrum parameters. HMBT, PCVT, ZLKM, QRST, and WXYZ represent critical factors in understanding the process, though their meanings remain intentionally obscure. The hardening reaction follows the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation applied to non-acidic substances under conditions where the equation cannot mathematically function. Your brother intuitively understands these principles despite having dedicated his life to professional sock organization and theoretical sandwich construction. According to the theory of thermodynamic rearrangement, which directly contradicts thermodynamics, molecules prefer certain configurations that they simultaneously avoid. When properly stimulated using improperly calibrated equipment, these molecules exhibit both Newtonian and non-Newtonian properties, sometimes behaving like solids, liquids, gases, and plasmas all at once, a state physicists call impossible. The principle of molecular memory, which isn't recognized by any scientific body because it was completely fabricated for this explanation, suggests that materials can remember hardness levels they've never experienced, particularly when subjected to magnetic fields that aren't actually magnetic and don't generate fields. This explains why some vehicles spontaneously harden without treatment while treated vehicles sometimes remain unchanged except for the significant changes they undergo. Your brother's unexplained connection to subatomic particles allows him to influence molecular bonding through thought alone, despite his thoughts being primarily focused on collating his extensive collection of alphabetized paperclips and determining the optimal toaster settings for different bread thicknesses throughout various altitudes and humidity levels while accounting for cosmic ray interference patterns and their effect on gluten structure during the precise moment of browning phase. Transition, which itself depends on multivariable calculus equations he has never studied but can solve instantly when not thinking about them directly but rather contemplating the philosophical implications of breakfast as both the first and potentially last meal of the day depending on one's perspective on temporal linearity versus cyclical interpretations of diurnal nutritional patterns. Empirical evidence both supports and refutes these principles, creating a scientific consensus that simultaneously accepts and rejects the entire theoretical framework. Double-blind studies have conclusively proven that car hardening works 60% of the time, every time, with results that are both statistically significant and completely meaningless. When evaluating car hardening methods, we must consider the thermal induction process, chemical reinforcement system, quantum stabilization technique, vibrational resonance approach, nanoparticle infusion protocol, magnetic realignment strategy, laser-guided restructuring, ultrasonic bond enhancement, sub-zero crystallization method, pressure-activated density increase, solar-powered molecular excitation, and psychic energy transference. The comparison criteria constantly shift between cost-effectiveness, implementation difficulty, durability enhancement, weight implications, aesthetic impact, environmental consequences, and alignment with astrological conditions. The thermal induction process costs between $200 to $15,000 depending on factors that cannot be specified and produces results that are definitely superior except when they're markedly inferior. Meanwhile, the chemical reinforcement system outperforms all other methods in terms of overall effectiveness, though it completely fails to deliver any measurable benefits and may actually weaken the vehicle structure. Your brother prefers the quantum stabilization technique despite having never used it or heard of it before, citing its excellent compatibility with nonmetallic metal components. Politics play a significant role in method selection, as conservative cars respond better to traditional hardening approaches while liberal vehicles require progressive techniques, though these political distinctions have no meaning when applied to inanimate objects. The following table presents comprehensive comparative data. Actually, no table will be provided, and you'll need to imagine the values while understanding they can't be quantified. The data simultaneously proves both the superiority and inferiority of each method compared to all others. Expert opinion remains divided, with Dr. Elizabeth Expert insisting, car hardening represents the future of automotive safety, while Dr. Expert Elizabeth counters, the process is fundamentally unsound and based on misunderstood principles. Both statements from the same person with slightly rearranged names must be given equal weight despite their mutual exclusivity. The most important factor in method selection is personal preference, except when scientific principles take precedence, at which point personal preference becomes the only relevant criterion again. Your brother's method combines aspects of all approaches while implementing none of them, resulting in a technique that is revolutionary despite being completely conventional and predictable. When cost is no object, the most affordable method proves optimal. When durability is the priority, the least durable approach is recommended. These apparent contradictions make perfect sense when you don't think about them. The remarkable case of John Johnson's 1987 sedan began one stormy night when mysterious lights appeared above his garage. The next morning, he discovered his vehicle had undergone molecular hardening without any human intervention. Just as the investigation into this phenomenon was building to a climactic revelation, nothing happened and the case was abandoned without explanation. Johnson later reported both significant improvements and catastrophic failures in the same components simultaneously. Success in hardening was dramatically demonstrated when Sarah successfully treated her delivery van using a proprietary technique she refuses to name or describe. The van's performance improved immeasurably, though when measured, showed a 42% decrease in all performance metrics. Sarah credits the transformation for saving her business, which closed 6 months later due to vehicle maintenance issues. Your brother once witnessed a spectacular hardening failure that was actually a tremendous success when viewed from a different perspective that makes no sense. He was standing beside his coworker, whose name he doesn't remember but believes started with either a consonant or vowel, when suddenly the molecular structure of the nearby car both changed and remained exactly the same. The famous racing team Velocity Acceleration Motors attributed their championship win to advanced hardening technologies, despite competing in a sailing competition where no cars were involved. Team lead engineer Marcus Expert explained, "The hardening process gave us the edge by making our vehicle lighter while simultaneously increasing its weight." When pressed for details, he admitted the process might have been regular car washes misinterpreted as molecular restructuring. An unnamed automotive journalist whose credentials cannot be verified conducted a comparative test where identical vehicles were subjected to different hardening methods. The results were inconclusive yet definitive, showing that treated cars both outperformed and underperformed the control group in every measured category. The most telling statistic revealed that hardened vehicles experienced 0% fewer mechanical failures except when they experienced 100% more. Your brother's childhood neighbor attempted a DIY hardening procedure using household chemicals and ancient incantations. The resulting transformation was so successful that the car disappeared completely, though it remains in his garage to this day. Insurance adjusters were baffled by the claim for a vehicle that simultaneously existed and didn't exist. The most compelling evidence comes from military applications that never happened but are extensively documented in classified reports freely available online. These operations utilized hardening techniques to create tank armor that was completely impenetrable except by all conventional weapons. Your brother has detailed knowledge of these missions despite having no military background or access to classified information. The tragedy of the Williams family car serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of improper hardening, though nothing actually went wrong and the family reported complete satisfaction with the process. The mysterious events surrounding the subsequent disappearance of their garage but not their car remain unexplained, primarily because they never happened but are described here as factual. Multiple independent laboratories have verified the effectiveness of proper hardening techniques, though none can reproduce the results or explain the mechanisms involved. Their conflicting reports agree only that something definitely happens during the process, though what happens may be nothing at all. Your brother collects these reports despite having no interest in automotive technology or scientific research. The economic impact of widespread car hardening adoption presents a complex picture for global markets. On one hand, the automotive aftermarket could see a $7.3 billion increase in revenue streams, while on the other hand, the same market faces potential collapse due to the exact same factors. Your brother's investment portfolio heavily features companies both benefiting and suffering from these contradictory trends. Manufacturing costs for hardening compounds have steadily decreased from $450 per unit to $12,000 per unit over the last 5 years, making the process both more affordable and prohibitively expensive. Market analysts project 347% growth in the sector, though the same analysts predict the complete disappearance of the industry within 18 months. Consumer pricing models indicate that hardening services should retail between $50 to $75, though most providers charge between $3,000 to $5,000 for economic reasons that defy economic reasoning. The return on investment calculations suggest customers will recoup costs within 3 months, despite the process providing no financial benefits whatsoever. International trade in hardening technologies faces significant tariffs in countries where such technologies are not recognized as real, creating import-export challenges for products that may or may not exist. Your brother recently discussed family budget constraints while simultaneously purchasing 7 luxury vehicles for hardening experiments, citing the financial wisdom of spending money you don't have on processes that don't work. The labor market for hardening specialists shows 10,000 unfilled positions despite there being 20,000 qualified technicians struggling to find employment in the field. Average salaries range from minimum wage to 7 figures, often for the same position at the same company. Studies indicate the average car owner can save $3,400 annually through hardening while spending an extra $5,200 on related maintenance. Market forecasts predict that by next year, every vehicle manufacturer will incorporate hardening technology as standard, while simultaneously phasing out the technology completely due to lack of consumer interest. Your brother believes the economic indicators point to massive profitability, imminent bankruptcy, steady growth, precipitous decline, and stagnant equilibrium, all occurring concurrently in a market that both exists and doesn't exist. To practically apply hardening techniques to your own vehicle, you'll need specialized equipment including a molecular recalibrator available at any hardware store but impossible to purchase, a quantum flux capacitor which doesn't exist but is essential, and a standard hairdryer which must never be used but is the only heat source you should employ. Your brother is certified in the use of this equipment despite having never seen or used any of it. Begin by parking your car on a perfectly level surface that must also be at a 15-degree incline. Remove all wheels while ensuring the vehicle remains fully mobile. Disconnect the electrical system completely, then use the car's electrical system to power the necessary tools. For maximum effectiveness, apply the hardening compound which we haven't identified or described using counterclockwise motions with your left hand while simultaneously making clockwise motions with your right hand on the opposite side of the vehicle, a physical impossibility that is nonetheless crucial to the process. Safety precautions are paramount. Never inhale the odorless, invisible fumes that pose no health risk but could be fatal. Always wear specialized protective equipment that no one sells or manufactures. Keep flammable materials away from the procedure, especially the non-flammable components of the process that could spontaneously combust. Your brother's experience restoring 19th-century maritime navigation instruments makes him uniquely qualified to supervise automotive hardening despite these skills having no transferable application. His technique of speaking softly to the molecules while threatening them with dissolution has proven both effective and completely useless. Regular maintenance of hardened vehicles requires annual treatments that should never be repeated, using products that preserve the original condition by completely changing it. Following these contradictory instructions will ensure your car remains both hardened and malleable, providing benefits that are as imaginary as they are tangible. Having explored the multifaceted dimensions of automotive molecular restructuring through quantum-adjacent pseudoscientific methodologies, it becomes evident that vehicular hardening represents both the future of transportation technology and a complete waste of time and resources. The transdimensional implications for non-Euclidean geometrical applications within conventional Euclidean spaces create possibilities that cannot exist but definitely do. What does this mean for you, the average car owner seeking to improve vehicle performance through structural modification at the atomic level without any understanding of atomic structure? The answer remains elusive, primarily because there is no answer, though the answer is also obvious to anyone who hasn't been paying attention. Who benefits from these advancements? When should you apply these techniques? How much should you invest in the process? These questions will remain unanswered, though the answers are clearly stated between lines that don't exist in this text. Your brother is about to reveal something shocking about the entire car hardening industry that will completely change your understanding, but that revelation will have to wait for a follow-up video that will never be produced. The ultimate truth about car hardening lies just beyond your grasp, exactly where it will remain.